Data centers. Everyone's talking about them, but why? It's all about data. We're all using it at home, in the office, around the world. And how we manipulate that data is what data centers are all about and what makes it possible. In recent years, the data center industry has matured and is essentially now its own asset class, distinct from office, retail, industrial. Whilst other real estate assets have suffered, the data center industry has continued to grow and strengthen, and demand currently outstrips supply in most parts of the world. Advances in technology have increased rather than reduced the need for data center capacity, as occupiers' requirements for data have also increased. The advent of the cloud and related cloud services has only served to increase this demand. But it's also important to remember that data centers are expensive, and in many cases they host business-critical infrastructure and services, and if it goes wrong, there can be very serious consequences. High risk needs to be mitigated by various solutions, both legal and commercial. And this increasingly specialist sector is what we're going to look at today. I'm joined by two of Europe's leading experts in the data center industry to talk about some of the issues relevant to this sector. And Martin, let me bring you in here. And why do investors like this sector in particular, do you think?
Yes, I think we're seeing an increasing awareness and also increasing activity in the sector from investors, and that's probably for three main reasons. Firstly, we're seeing suppressed returns from more traditional asset classes such as retail or offices. Secondly, we're seeing that investors are becoming more aware, the public are becoming more aware that IT is intrinsic to both business and personal life, and therefore is seen as a longer term play potentially for those investors. Thirdly, the length of the leases and the good covenant strength of the tenants in the buildings as well, and the fact that actually those tenants are often extending those leases at the end of their occupational terms because moving IT equipment is difficult, is driving actually more interest in the sector.
Why do customers use your data centers as opposed to building their own?
The three main drivers for doing so are financial. Data centers are notoriously capital intensive, and the operating expenses once built are onerous. Secondly, risk. Our customers are looking to mitigate risk. They drive large amounts of revenues through data centers, and therefore a data center failure will impact their bottom line. And thirdly, uncertainty and flexibility. Nobody knows what's coming 12, 24, 36 months down the line, and by working with large dedicated data center services providers like ourselves, our customers know that they have flexibility in future to expand as required.
What are the key risks for the unwary in this specialist sector?
So I think the first thing that is very important for people to have an awareness of is actually the options that are available in the market. This is quite an opaque market. Actually, people aren't often fully aware of all the various businesses and options they could talk to. Secondly, I think people also need to get good specialist advice from specialists in the sector as well, so whether that be legal or consultant advice to understand what options are out there and how to structure those transactions as well from people who are experienced in dealing with the market every day. Thirdly, the other point that I would bring to most people's attention is really getting to understand the structure of those transactions so that you consider not just the obvious things such as the rent or the service level agreements, but some of the more detailed specialist points around areas such as power consumption charging.
And perhaps you could just touch on some of the key trends that you see coming into the market, perhaps in the medium to long term.
We've seen that a growing trend in multiple data center footprints globally. The challenge that the customer always has is data must reside within a certain location, within a certain locale, but it also needs to be transferable between locations. So there is the constant battle between where the data resides, which location it resides in, and how it then talks to other data centers and how data is transferred and tracked through that transfer process.
So I think we're going to see more acquisition activity from the large global data center brands as they seek to consolidate in the sector. We're definitely going to see more corporate outsourcing of data centers, and that is driven firstly by the requirement that people do not want to spend their own capital in businesses in the current economic climate, and they're moving more to an operational expenditure model. And secondly, we're seeing more businesses using cloud services such as sort of big data analysis to understand their own customers better, and therefore that's driving more compute power. And as we're seeing more of that outsourced, I think we're going to see more and more activity and growth in the data center.
So in summary, predictions for the future.
The amount of data in circulation will continue to grow, which will drive continued demand for data centers. The barriers to entry for new investors will remain high, and therefore my prediction is that demand will continue to outstrip supply for the foreseeable future.